Hey everyone, welcome back to the deep dive. Today's deep dive is going to be a little different. We're going to be diving into the world of Leonardo da Vinci, but we're going to be doing it with a bit of a twist. We're going to be testing your knowledge about Leonardo da Vinci with a quiz, so get ready to see how much you really know about the ultimate Renaissance man.
That's right. We've got some tricky questions lined up. Even if you think you're a Leonardo expert, you might be surprised by some of the things we're going to uncover.
All right, no pressure then.
Yeah.
Let's jump right in. Question number one. We're starting with Leonardo's origins.
Yeah.
We all know that he was born out of wedlock, but the question is, who was his mother? Was it A noblewoman disinherited for her love affair. B. A traveling musician and performer. C. A woman from the lower class. Or D. A wealthy merchant's daughter fleeing an arranged marriage.
Interesting options, right? I mean, those first two definitely have a very romantic flair to them, don't they? Disinherited noblewoman, forbidden love. I mean, it
Yeah.
sounds like something straight out of one of Leonardo's paintings.
Right. And a traveling musician. Maybe that's where he got his creative spark.
Maybe. It's possible, but let's not get too carried away by those, romantic possibilities. If we look at the historical facts, Leonardo's father was a notary, a legal professional, not really the kind of person who would be hanging out with the, high society.
Okay, so probably safe to rule out option A and D,
Hmm.
then right. Doesn't really fit with what we know about his family.
Yeah, exactly. And while there's always, room for speculation, there's no historical evidence to suggest that his mother was a traveling musician.
So that leaves us with Quentin saying, a woman from the lower class. Is that our answer?
You got it. Her name was Katerina. And we don't know a lot about her life, but we do know that she later married a local artisan. So it's interesting to think that, Leonardo, this man who reached such incredible heights, actually came from quite humble beginnings.
Yeah, it really goes to show talent can blossom
Oh.
anywhere, right? Okay, on to question number two. This one's about Leonardo's earliest memory, which he actually recorded in his notebooks, which, as you know, are just filled with these fascinating insights. But what was this early memory that he wrote about? Was it A, witnessing a solar eclipse,
Hmm.
B, a kite landing on his cradle,
Hmm.
C, his father gifting him a set of drawing tools, or D, a vivid dream of flying over his hometown?
Oh, these are also intriguing. I mean, a solar eclipse, that would be a pretty powerful image for a young child to have, right?
Yeah, you could just imagine that sense of awe and wonder staring up at the sky as the world goes dark.
Yeah, or maybe his father, recognized his artistic talent very early on and presented him with a set of drawing tools that's a kind of heartwarming image.
And that dream of flying. I mean, so many of his inventions were about pushing the boundaries of what humans could do. Maybe that dream planted the seed for his fascination with flight.
Oh, it's so tempting to draw those connections, right? But the actual memory is, it's far more unexpected. The correct answer is B, a kite landing on his cradle.
Or kite. Wow, that's such a simple, almost whimsical memory. I never would have guessed that.
Right. It's kind of a nice reminder that even a genius like Leonardo started out as a child experiencing the world in these ordinary ways. And actually, this memory has sparked a lot of debate amongst scholars. Some people wonder if it was a real event or a product of, his imagination.
That's a good point. And maybe it's a bit of both. Memory blended with a little bit of fantasy definitely adds to his mystique. Okay, question number three is all about Leonardo's training. And we all know that he was an incredible artist, but his workshop training went far beyond just painting and sculpting. Which of these skills was also part of his training? Was it
Sure.
A, swordsmanship and horsemanship, B, musical composition and performance, C, alchemy and herbal medicine, or D, leatherworking and mechanics?
Now, this question really gets to the heart of what it meant to be an artist during the Renaissance, because it wasn't just about creating, beautiful artwork. It was about having this wide range of skills and knowledge.
Right, that they were expected to be these multi-talented, almost like modern-day polymaths, swordsmanship and horsemanship, for an artist that's more like something out of an action movie.
I know, right? But you have to remember, those were highly valued skills back then, and option B, musical composition, definitely fits with that Renaissance ideal of the well-rounded individual.
And alchemy. It's easy to picture Leonardo in his workshop experimenting with potions and elixirs.
Oh, absolutely fascinating image.
Hmm.
But, if we think about his later work, especially his anatomical drawings and his inventions, there's one option that really stands out as being particularly relevant.
You're right, it has to be leatherworking and mechanics.
Exactly. Those practical hands-on skills would have given him a deep understanding of materials and mechanisms, and you can really see that reflected in his inventions and his incredibly detailed anatomical studies.
Yeah, it's like he was always trying to figure out how things worked, from the human body to, the workings of machines. Okay, question four. This one takes us to one of Leonardo's early commissions as an independent artist. Which of these projects did he start but never actually finish, was it? A. A portrait of Lorenzo de' Medici. B. An altarpiece for the Chapel of St. Bernard. C. Illustrations for Dante's Inferno. Or D. A bronze sculpture of a mythical creature.
It's almost as if he had too many ideas, too many projects swirling around in his mind to really focus on just one thing.
He was a true Renaissance man, always exploring, always experimenting. A portrait of Lorenzo de' Medici would have been a huge deal back then, right? He was such a powerful patron of the arts.
Oh, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
it's very possible that Leonardo was commissioned to paint his portrait at some point.
And illustrating Dante's Inferno. I mean, it can only imagine what kind of dark, fantastical creatures Leonardo would have come up with for those scenes.
Oh, I would love to see those illustrations. But the project that he actually started but never completed was be an altarpiece for the Chapel of St. Bernard.
An altarpiece. That's a major commission for a young artist.
It was, and it was meant for the Palazzo Vecchio, a very important government building in Florence.
Wow. And he just abandoned it.
Yeah, he did. It seems like Leonardo had this habit of leaving projects unfinished, and in this case, he left the altarpiece behind when he decided to travel to Milan and offer his services to the Duke.
Speaking of the Duke, that leads us perfectly into question number 5. Leonardo's engineering skills, which we know were honed from his early training, were really put to the test. In Milan, his first major engineering challenge there involved designing what? A. A system to defend Venice from naval attack. B. A new type of cannon for the Duke of Milan. C. An irrigation system for the vineyards of Florence. Or D. A bridge capable of spanning the Arno River.
Here we see Leonardo stepping out of the artist studio and into the world of, practical engineering. He's no longer just an artist. He's presenting himself as an innovator, as a problem solver.
Really pushing the boundaries of what was possible back then. And, how much he loved observing nature, designing an irrigation system for the vineyards of Florence. Seems like it would be right up his alley.
It does, but remember, he's in Milan and he's trying to impress the Duke, so he really wants to showcase skills that would be valuable to a powerful ruler.
Okay, so something more practical, something that would really show off his ingenuity and maybe give the Duke a little bit of a military edge.
Exactly, and when you look at his later notebooks, you see this real fascination with military engineering and weaponry.
So the answer must be a system to defend Venice from naval attack.
You're absolutely right, and it's fascinating because this question kind of touches on several different parts of his life. He did flee to Venice later on, and his notebooks are full of these sketches of war machines. It's almost like this early commission kind of foreshadowed events to come.
It's incredible how all these threads of his interests, kind of weave together throughout his life. Question 6 is all about Leonardo's incredible anatomical drawings. I mean, they were groundbreaking for their time, so detailed and accurate. But how did he achieve that level of precision? Were his drawings based on A, ancient Greek medical texts, B, careful observation of live models,
Yeah.
C, dissections of human corpses, or D, imagination and artistic intuition?
His anatomical studies really showcase that intersection of art and science that Leonardo was so famous for. I mean, they're these beautiful works of art, but they're also incredibly valuable scientific documents.
Yeah, it's hard to imagine, someone back then having access to accurate information about the human body. Didn't they mostly have to rely on these old texts that were often, full of errors?
Right. A lot of anatomical knowledge at the time was based on ancient Greek texts, which weren't always reliable.
So while he might have consulted those texts, option A, they couldn't have been his main source of information.
Exactly. And while observing live models, that was crucial for his artistic work, it wouldn't have given him that level of internal anatomical detail that we see in his drawings.
And to think he achieved all this centuries before, modern medical imaging, and it couldn't have been just imagination either, right?
No, absolutely not option D. Relying solely on imagination wouldn't have resulted in the anatomical accuracy that makes his drawings so remarkable.
Okay, so the answer has to be C, dissections of human corpses. But how was he even allowed to do that back then?
I know it seems almost unthinkable for the time, but Leonardo was actually able to get permission to dissect human bodies at hospitals in Florence and Milan and even Rome. It was this hands-on approach, this willingness to go beyond, the accepted norms that allowed him to make such revolutionary observations.
Wow, it's amazing to think of him, meticulously studying those bodies, pushing the boundaries of both art and science. Speaking of pushing boundaries, question 7 takes us into the world of mathematics. We know that Leonardo was fascinated by geometry, and he even collaborated with a mathematician on a book exploring these concepts. But what was the title of this book, was it? A. The elements of geometry. B. Divine proportion. C. Perspective for painters. Or D. The mirror of the world.
All of those titles sound like they could have come straight out of the Renaissance. I mean, it was this era where, the lines between disciplines were blurred, where math and art were seen as interconnected.
Yeah, the elements of geometry sound like a very classic foundational text, and perspective for painters would have been a huge influence for Renaissance artists, right?
Absolutely. Artists were obsessed with mastering perspective, creating the illusion of depth and realism in their paintings.
And the mirror of the world, it kind of hints at that Renaissance desire to understand the universe, to see beyond the surface of things.
It really does, but the book that Leonardo collaborated on was Divine Proportion.
Divine proportion, that's a beautiful title. What was it all about?
Well, it explored mathematical proportions and their presence in art, nature, and even the human body. Leonardo was really captivated by the idea that, these mathematical principles underpinned the beauty and harmony of the world.
Yeah, he was always searching for those, underlying patterns, those hidden connections that held the universe together.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that he wasn't working in isolation. He collaborated with Luca Pacioli, who is a brilliant mathematician. It's a good reminder that even geniuses, benefit from sharing ideas and working together.
Collaboration is key. All right, let's shift gears back to painting for question 8. We all know the Mona Lisa and that enigmatic smile, but Leonardo was a master of many techniques. One of his most famous was sfumato, which creates this kind of soft, hazy effect in his paintings. Besides the Mona Lisa, which other work features this technique? Is it A, the Last Supper, B, the Virgin and Child with St. Anne and St. John the Baptist, C, Lady with an Ermine?
Sfumato, it
Yeah.
gives his paintings this ethereal, almost dreamlike quality. You're right, the Mona Lisa is a prime example, but it wasn't the only work where he used this technique.
I'm trying to picture the different paintings and how he used light and shadow. The Last Supper is so powerful, but it's more about dramatic contrasts, isn't it?
You're right, the lighting in The Last Supper is very striking, but it's not really what we'd call sfumato.
Okay, and Lady with an Ermine, there's a softness to her features, but it's more focused on, the detail, the textures of her clothing and the ermine.
Exactly. You've eliminated all the wrong answers, which means you know that the correct answer is the Virgin and Child with St. Anne and St. John the Baptist.
Oh, of course, that pyramid composition and the way the figures seem to melt into each other and into the background. Classic sfumato.
Right. Leonardo used sfumato to blend the figures seamlessly into the landscape, creating this sense of unity and harmony. And what's fascinating is that there's actually a large preparatory drawing for this painting done in black chalk, where that sfumato effect is even more pronounced. It shows how much he experimented with this technique even in his sketches.
Yeah, it's like he was constantly pushing the boundaries, both in his art and his, scientific explorations. And speaking of exploring different avenues, question 9 highlights another fascinating aspect of Leonardo's talents. We know he was a painter, a sculptor, an engineer, a scientist, but he also designed sets and costumes. But for what kind of productions was it for? A, religious festivals and processions. B, courtly pageants and entertainments. C, early theatrical productions. Or D, carnival celebrations.
It seems like there was no end to his creative endeavors. He really did dabble in a bit of everything. I can picture him designing these elaborate floats and decorations for, religious festivals. Those events must have been quite the spectacle.
Oh, absolutely. And the costumes for courtly pageants? I mean, can you imagine the extravagance, the opulent fabrics, the intricate details? He must have created some truly stunning pieces.
I can only imagine, and early theatrical productions were gaining popularity during the Renaissance. I bet he would have designed some incredible stage sets, but if we consider the context of, his life in Milan, one option really stands out.
You're right, it has to be the courtly pageants and entertainments. He was in the heart of the Duke's court, surrounded by those lavish displays of, wealth and power.
Exactly. We have descriptions of these extravagant events at the Milanese court with elaborate costumes and sets designed to really impress and entertain. There are even drawings of Salai, one of Leonardo's pupils, dressed in, fancy costumes, probably for one of these courtly pageants.
It's fascinating to think of him not just as, this solitary genius, but as someone who is actively involved in these grand celebrations, using his creativity to bring them to life. Okay, we've reached the final question, the grand finale of our Leonardo quiz, and this one focuses on his relationship with King Francis I of France.
King Francis, one of Leonardo's biggest admirers.
He was. And it said that the king admired Leonardo most for what aspect of his genius was it his? A, artistic talent and masterful paintings. B, technological innovations and inventions. C, anatomical knowledge and medical insights. Or D, philosophical wisdom and understanding of nature.
This question really gets to the heart of what truly captivated King Francis about Leonardo. It goes beyond appreciating his individual skills, even beyond acknowledging, his incredible range of talents.
Yeah, it's about seeing the whole picture, isn't it?
Yeah.
Recognizing the mind behind the art, the inventions, the scientific discoveries.
Exactly. While all of those options are certainly part of Leonardo's legacy, the king saw something even deeper. He recognized that Leonardo's true genius lay in his ability to see the world holistically, to connect the dots between seemingly disparate fields.
So it wasn't just about the technical skill, the brilliance of his paintings, or the ingenuity of his machines.
Exactly. And we have this fascinating account from Benvenuto Cellini, a sculptor and goldsmith who was at the French court. And he describes King Francis praising Leonardo's knowledge, saying it extended far beyond painting and the arts.
So the answer is D, philosophical wisdom and understanding of nature.
Spot on. King Francis saw Leonardo as a philosopher, someone who could bridge the gap between art, science, and the natural world. He recognized that unifying vision, that insatiable curiosity that drove Leonardo to explore every facet of knowledge.
That's what makes him so endlessly fascinating. Even centuries later, it wasn't just the mastery of, individual skills, but that drive to understand the world, to unlock its secrets. Wow, 10 questions down, and I feel like we've only just scratched the surface.
There's so much more to explore. Leonardo's notebooks alone could keep us busy for a lifetime. They're filled with sketches and observations and ideas that were centuries ahead of their time. But hopefully this deep dive has sparked your curiosity and given you a little glimpse into the multifaceted mind of this extraordinary Renaissance man. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep asking those big questions.
And keep diving deep.